Okay, let's be real, Spider-Man No Way Home was a blast. If nothing else, you have to admire a movie that brought together 3 separate franchises spanning 20 years.
Yeah.
Sure, Endgame was impressive and all, but that was always the, it was always the end game for the MCU from the very beginning. But here, no one could have seen this one
This
coming.
wasn't
Just
planned out.
absolutely
You know it
so
wasn't.
much fun, which means that now we have to rip this thing to shreds because that ending, man, we have got to talk about it. Well, the movie was great and all. Peter Parker's final wish left me with a lot of questions, and it seems like I'm not the only one.
I mean, does the guy have a birth certificate? A social security card?
What happens with all the videos and news reports about him being Spider-Man?
Hey,
What did
that's
old
the guy
Tommy
from the other
Holland
videos.
actually wish for in the final moments of the movie? And what does that actually translate to based on every clue that we see in the film's final moments? And more importantly, what does it mean for the future of this character
Not
and this
home.
franchise? That, my friends, is what I'm aiming
Let's
to answer
get rid of
today.
the home thing. Yeah. I'd be okay with them not having home in the title moving forward.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, where I use my Peter Tingle each and every week to spot and solve lore mysteries. Obviously, get your minds out of the gutter, guys. Okay, so Spider-Man No Way Home really needs no introduction at this point. It seems like everyone in the world has seen this thing. Probably has, actually, considering that it had the #2 opening weekend of all time of any movie ever. That is insane. In fact, it only took
Especially
that one
now.
single weekend to make it the highest grossing movie of 2021. After a year where theaters were really struggling to find their footing, the old webhead
course.
proved that people were willing to come back, provided you have a huge IP, pay off one of cinema's biggest cliffhangers, and tap into 20 years of built-up nostalgia. You know, no biggie. But this movie really does have it all. Lots of bad guys come together, Tobey Maguire getting his back cracked, great power, great responsibility, all that stuff. Really solid
Gun
across
to
the
his
board.
head.
But gotta be honest here, anytime you tamper with the multiverse, you're gonna be getting some questions from lore nerds like me. And
Always.
this movie leaves open some big ones. Questions that I aim to definitively answer today. Or, you know, as definitive as I can until they retcon something to fit the ongoing narrative that they're looking to tell.
Control-Z.
First and foremost, why are we only seeing the villains? As a reminder, the entire premise of the movie kicks off when Peter Parker asks Doctor Strange to cast a spell that makes everyone forget that he's Spider-Man. After Peter tampers with the spell one too many times, it breaks the fabric of reality, opening the door for villains like Lizard and
Dr. Otto Octavius.
to come through from other universes because, as the movie tells us, they knew the Spider-Man Peter Parker connection. At least most of them did, prompting our first major discussion here. Electro is a bit hazy on this
Right.
point, since in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Max Dillon never explicitly makes the Peter Parker Spider-Man connection.
Right.
In fact, it seems like No Way Home acknowledges this. There's even a joke about it where Electro, upon seeing Andrew Garfield's face at the end of the movie, says that he'd assumed that Peter Parker was gonna be black the entire time. So, is that just the writers being sloppy so they can fit in a Miles Morales joke, or are they actually playing some level of 4D chess that we mere nerds aren't privy to? Well, there are 2 possible ways to explain Electro's presence,
When he
both
was
of
jacked
which
in,
require
right?
a fair amount of squinting to make work. First, we hear in No Way Home that Electro was, and this is a direct quote from the movie
Right.
that I can't play for obvious reasons, he was stuck in the grid absorbing data before his memory disappears
Right.
and he dies. Now, this isn't exactly true if you go back to the source material. Electro was actually in a power grid, specifically a hydroelectric power grid. And I know science wasn't your strongest suit, Hollywood, so this might come as a shock to you, but electricity is different than the internet. I know, I was just as blown away as you are. But I guess if you're assuming that he's absorbing electricity and internet in this scene, then you could say that Max got the info through accessing Peter's online data. Maybe. Like I said, it's a pretty weak sauce explanation. The other angle
Weak
here,
sauce.
and this is the one that I think is canonical to the story and also works with the whole I thought you'd be black joke, is that Max does know Spider-Man's name is Peter, he just doesn't know his face. In the final fight, Electro is knocked unconscious after playing the itsy bitsy spider on the power grid, because this movie just makes all the worst decisions. Gwen Stacy arrives and calls out to Peter, at which point we smash cut to Electro becoming alert and ready to attack again.
When I say you turn that power on, you turn it on, no matter what. Peter.
So that definitely explains how Electro knows that Spider-Man's name is Peter, but I think that there's still a missing piece here, and that's Peter's best friend, Harry, who breaks Electro out of captivity to help him take care of Spider-Man.
I'm Harry Osborn. I want to make you a deal. You want Spider-Man? and I can give him to you.
At this point in the movie, Harry knows that Peter and Spider-Man share some sort of connection.
You took his picture. You know him.
Harry most likely tells all of this to Electro after he breaks him out. So when Max hears the name Peter from Gwen, he's able to make that final connection to Peter Parker, Harry's friend.
I like
he was
that
told
one.
About. Oh boy,
I mean, it's a
there
lot.
you go, screenwriters. I saved your butts on that
a lot
one.
of steps.
Something tells me that no one really intended all of that, but it does manage to work out when you read between the lines. Anyway, putting Electro aside, I'm more interested in the bigger question: why only the villains? Why don't we see anyone else come through here, like girlfriends or best friends?
Yeah.
In the Sam Raimi trilogy, Mary Jane knows Peter's identity all too well.
Go get him, Tiger.
And in The Amazing Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy treats it like it's the most casual thing in the world.
Consider coming in through the lobby.
The best friends in these movies also tend to know. The Harry Osborns from both universes know Peter's secret.
First, we'll see who's behind the mask.
So, was this just a decision made out of convenience, or is there an actual in-universe explanation for it? Well, believe it or not, but this one actually lines up pretty well with the lore. I don't know, again, if this was intentional or not, but as Doctor Strange prepares his magic, Peter requests that his girlfriend, his best friend, and Aunt May all get exempted from the spell.
So MJ's gonna forget about everything we've ever been through. Oh my God, Ned. Oh, my Aunt May should really know. Stop talking.
And so Strange removes them from the magic to try and meet Peter's request. However, when the whole thing goes haywire and people who knew Peter's identity start crossing over, those people are still eliminated. As such, all the girlfriends, best friends, and aunts aren't included and therefore don't cross over into the MCU. Was it intentional? No, probably not. Is it a cool coincidence that helps explain the rationale for that part of the movie? Yeah, I think so. One of the other things the movie just kind of glosses over that I thought was interesting to think about was the implication of curing all of these characters. The whole second act of the movie is Peter sacrificing and losing everything, including Aunt May, to try and cure these villains, working under the assumption that he's saving their lives and giving them a second chance in their own universes. Except, nope, that is decidedly not true. The Sandman doesn't die in his movie, so kind of a lost cause there. Same thing with the Lizard, who already is transformed back into a human by the end of his movie, so redundancy is redundant. That leaves Electro and Green Goblin, neither of whom want to be cured, which opens a big old can of ethical worms about forcing a cure on individuals that don't want to be cured. But worst of all, perhaps, is the situation for Doc Ock, who, if you actually look back at the original movie, wouldn't be saved at all.
Yeah, that's what I
No Way
thought.
Home, he says that he's portaled over into Tom Holland's reality in the middle of a battle against Spider-Man. Specifically, he says, quote, "Spider-Man was trying to stop my fusion reactor, so I stopped him. I had him by the throat, and then I was here." One teeny tiny problem with that: by the time Doc Ock has Spider-Man by the throat in Spider-Man 2, his fusion reactor is already seconds away from exploding. It is far beyond the point of saving. The good doctor himself is mere seconds away from his own redemption at this point.
Listen to me now.
Seriously, Doc Ock already makes the decision to turn good and sacrifice himself, so Tom Holland's help with a fixed neural implant here also amounts to just a meaningless gesture for something that was gonna happen anyway. In short, this whole movie was extraneous because you either don't change any character's outcome, or you just cure people who don't want to be cured in the first.
I will say this though, someone in the comments when I did the pitch meeting for Spider-Man No Way Home was saying that because they're changing his neural input, maybe he has more time to figure out a better way to get rid of the fusion reactor. I don't know, but it feels like he gets put back. For what I'm understanding, I thought they were getting put back to the exact moment when they left. So would it even matter in that case? I feel like it wouldn't.
Place. Sorry about your sacrifice, Aunt May. Doesn't look like it did much good, but hey, at least you got to say the iconic line. But now, the big one, the ending wish. At the end of the movie, the Green Goblin uses a pumpkin bomb to destroy the Deus Vox Machina, causing reality to shred and even more entities to try and cross over into Tom Holland's universe. Doctor Strange tries to repair the rift, but it's just too much. He can't contain it. So with no other option, Peter makes one final sacrifice. He asks Strange to make the world forget about Peter Parker. Now, I've rewatched the scene a couple of times, and this is exactly how it's transcribed.
They're here because of you.
What if everyone forgot who I was? They're coming here because of me, right? Because I'm Peter Parker. So cast a new spell. But this time, make everyone forget who Peter Parker is. Make everyone forget me.
That would mean everyone who knows and loves you would have no memory of you. It would be as though you never existed.
And it works. The rift gets repaired and the world no longer knows the identity of Spider-Man. Hooray! But it comes at the cost of MJ, Ned, Happy, and all the others having no clue who Peter is. So it's just a simple memory wipe spell, right? What's so complicated to understand about that? Well,
There's so many
only it were that
things.
simple. As Peter and Disney are more than happy to remind us of repeatedly throughout the movie, Peter is the most famous person in the world at this point because Mysterio outed him as the identity of Spider-Man.
would that video
and
be
he
gone?
did this in the form of a video. Did that video get wiped away by the spell? Sure, let's assume that it was. But then, what about all the other physical evidence of Peter Parker? Before the big climax, Peter takes a selfie video that gets broadcast out to the world. Does that disappear too? Or his text messages to MJ? Or Flash's book? Are those all just gone? What about his application to MIT? The simple answer here would be that the spell dusted all of those things too. All physical traces of Peter Parker just poof away. Like Dr. Strange said, it'll be as though you never existed. Except yet again, it's not that clear cut. We see in the final scenes of the movie that MJ is wearing the broken Black Dahlia necklace that Peter gave her in the previous movie. In addition, we learn that both Ned and MJ have gotten into MIT, something that Peter had a direct hand in earlier in the film. So it seems like his physical actions have had some sort of memory on the world, even if the world doesn't necessarily remember him. So maybe Peter's just gone then, right? Everything he touched and altered up to that point stays, but anything with the name Peter Parker on it's just dusted away. Not again. On one hand, we see Peter studying for his GEDs. For those of you who don't know, the GED here in the US is a test that allows you to show that you have high school level skills. By taking it and passing it functions pretty much the same way as a diploma. So the fact that he's taking it implies either A, that his academic record has been erased as part of the spell, or B, he isn't returning to finish the school year. Again, most likely because he no longer has a student record. But on the other hand, we see Peter get himself an apartment. This implies that he has to have himself some level of an identity, as well as a fairly decent credit score. As anyone who's ever tried to get an apartment can tell you, you need a social security number and a history of income to be able to lease from a landlord. So a lot of conflicting information there. But of all the conflicting evidence we have, none perhaps is as confusing as his interactions with Happy at Aunt May's grave. When Peter asks how he knew her, Happy replies through Spider-Man. So Happy knows Spider-Man, but again, not Peter Parker. How could that possibly make any sense? Because Happy knows May not via Spider-Man, but because Spider-Man is connected to Peter Parker. Without the link of Peter Parker, there's no way for Happy to meet May. And yet somehow, under the arbitrary rules of the spell, he does apparently know her.
Wait, hold on. I thought it was because of the when Spider-Man goes to that fundraiser at Feast, and Happy was there too, and it's kind of through that. Even though Peter did take his mask off, maybe that interaction is erased because Peter was there, and anything you see with Peter is gone from your memory. And so he thinks it was just him and May in the back kitchen area behind the stage. I don't know, but I thought it was through Feast and the things that Spider-Man was doing with May there. That's how he knew Spider-Man. That was my interpretation.
Which then prompts the question, does that mean MJ, under the memory spell, remembers being Spider-Man's girlfriend? Because again, she knows Spider-Man, but she doesn't know Peter? Same thing with Ned. Does he know that he's Spider-Man's guy in the chair? So taking all of the evidence and questions into account, I think there's only one way to explain all of this. The spell doesn't erase Peter Parker from existence. It just erases people's memory of him, and along with that, erases any physical thing that would be considered or connected to a memory of him. But Peter's achievements, the aftermath of thing that he's explicitly done, those all remain. It's a difference of qualitative versus quantitative actions, which is pretty confusing, so let me explain with some examples. Mysterio's video claiming that he's being attacked by Spider-Man, that still exists because it was tied to an action that was being done by Spider-Man. But the part where he calls out Peter Parker, that now is gone because it would be dependent on Mysterio knowing Peter Parker. Flash's book, gone because again, it's based on Flash's relationship and memories with Peter Parker. Meanwhile, Peter's bank account and social security number, those would remain. Earning money and putting it into a bank or being given a social security number are physical acts that don't hinge on the memory or identity of Peter Parker. Just like giving a physical necklace to MJ. She has the necklace, but I would guess she doesn't remember where she got it from. Those actions exist separate from the identity of Peter. Basically, when people see his name, they'll just think of him as some random anonymous person, like we see MJ do in the coffee shop. So what then would this mean for the series? Well, Well, if I'm right, it would mean that both MJ and Ned shouldn't remember their interactions with Spider-Man. To both of them, he was Peter Parker first. And when they're helping Spider-Man, they're really helping Peter. So all of those memories have got to go. Happy, meanwhile, is able to fall into the opposite bucket. His relationship with Peter started through the identity of Spider-Man. And while he certainly grew to love the boy behind the mask, the root of that relationship was the secret identity, thus allowing him to remember Aunt May and chalk those memories up to Spider-Man's influence.
Okay, that was right.
Likewise, Spider-Man should still be able to continue on as an Avenger, but here no one will know his real name, making the eventual reunion with the Guardians of the Galaxy real awkward.
Who are you? We're the Avengers, man.
But to me, what's probably most interesting about all this is how it relates to the Vulture. As you might recall, he's the biggest dangling threat in the series, the only one who knows Spider-Man's identity and who keeps getting teased as pulling together a Sinister Six.
It's not on you. It's on our little spider friend. I've got some boys on the outside who'd love to meet him.
In fact, he's so important that he's being used to market the upcoming Morbius movie.
Hey, Dr. Mike. You and I should stay in touch.
Leaving many to question whether Morbius is now a part of the MCU, and Sony's response thus far has been yesn't. They're being real cagey about it, but in reality, no, he's not. This is all just a fake out. By the rules that we've just gone over, the Vulture wouldn't know Peter's secret identity. The scene in the car in Homecoming would be a forgotten memory. As such, all of the teases from both Morbius and Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies should ultimately amount to nothing. And moments in trailers like this are just more instances of movie studios pulling boners. Ralph Boner, for those of you who don't get the reference.
Sure. Ralph Boner?
Boner.
All of it fake outs to sell tickets. So there you have it, friends. No Way Home.
That's
a
not
lot
a big
of seeming
enough
gaps in the
draw,
plot
though.
that just squeak by getting solved if you look at them deep enough. Well done, screenwriters. You've escaped me this time. Which leaves us then with a single Spider-Man who has literally no history. What a nice clean slate to start a brand new trilogy on. One might call it a reboot of sorts. And wait, who was it that predicted that? By whatever means Wanda Maximoff zaps in during the post-credit scene to set us up for the multiverse of madness, the story is going to wrap up in such a way that, while there can be a path forward for Tom Holland's Peter Parker, he can also be soft rebooted. I guess sometimes even a blind squirrel finds a nut. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
That was some good stuff. My first Film Theorists video as far as the film theory series. I like it. I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. But this one, it didn't really answer much as far as the villains. I think they have the same thoughts that I had. Doc Ock is still going to die, whether he has a new, implant or not. His place in the timeline as far as when he comes over to the MCU is so specific. He was at that moment with the fusion reactor and then he came over. So he's going to go back to that same point, right? The only characters I think would have a different scenario when they go back is Green Goblin and Electro. Electro, he's going to go to prison. And then Green Goblin will also go to prison. But when it comes to Electro, yes, he says he's in the grid. I think things will kind of change up when he goes back because he doesn't have the power anymore. When it comes to Green Goblin, I don't remember it being a specific moment that they say when he's kind of like what he was doing when he comes over. So his scenario could be different. Sandman and Lizard is just going to be what it is. Obviously, when it came to Lizard, he was already cured in his movie. Sandman is just going to go to his daughter, but he'll probably still always be on the run. Who knows? So for those scenarios, like nothing really changed for me watching this as far as my thoughts on that, because they kind of feel the same way. When it comes to Peter Parker being forgotten or the memory of it, I feel like they'll just do something where the magic erased all those things. Like Flash's book will be a book, but it'll just be blank pages. Like there won't be anything on there. Probably won't even have a title. I think that's kind of how it's going to go when it comes to like different things that could relate to a memory of Peter Parker. So I like their breakdown on that. That was really good. I didn't expect it to be that deep. That was really good. So I enjoyed that a lot. Let me know your thoughts on that when it comes to Peter Parker's identity being forgotten by everyone, but Spider-Man being remembered. And on the villains, do you think the villains still have the same outcome that they do in their original movies, or would the outcomes be different for them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I, for one, like that Peter Parker is now essentially a nobody. He's Spider-Man still, everybody knows that, but Peter Parker is a nobody, so he's alone. This is a different scenario from a Peter Parker we've seen in like the animated series or the other movies. He's definitely all the way by himself, and so it's going to be kind of cool to see how they play with that. So time will tell. Once we get more news on that. There's also news about Andrew Garfield getting another movie. There's also rumors about Tobey Maguire possibly getting another movie. I think it'll be Andrew Garfield that kind of continues with his, maybe in the Venom universe or Morbius, like whatever the case. He fits a little better for those movies than Tom Holland Spider-Man to me. So I don't know. We'll see. Sony's kind of doing their thing. They're figuring things out still. Morbius got pushed to April 1st, which is that April Fool's joke in itself? I don't know. I think it was a smart move though, because Spider-Man is still doing so well in theaters. But it's just been fun stuff for Sony so far, with Spider-Man doing well, hitting that $1 billion plus. Morbius coming out soon. They've got some good stuff going so far. So it'll be fun to see. And Disney, obviously, they're doing their thing. So they're enjoying it. Again, I'm rambling. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Shout out to you guys for watching, members, subscribers, watchers, however you support the channel. I really, really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this content and you want to see more. To my Hyper Crew members, Brian Tidwell, Steve O, Slepnir, Dash Milner, K6013, Daniel Lopez, Kratos, Richie Chester, and Arnon Steelpelt. I appreciate you guys for choosing to support with that hyper tier crew. Thank you so much. Check out the description for more content creators and the videos that they have to offer. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the comments for this, and I'll also see you on the next video. Hope you have yourself a great rest of your day.